Sometimes the loudest fight you'll ever have to win is the one where you decide not to respond. The enemy loves noise. He loves distraction. He thrives off of getting you to open your mouth when silence would have been your victory. But God is calling you into a season where your greatest weapon isn't clapping back. It isn't proving yourself. It isn't even explaining who you are. It's focusing on you and letting silence protect your peace. When you understand that your silence isn't weakness but strategy, that's when you start moving different. And when you focus on yourself, you start unlocking the version of you that God had in mind all along. Silence is not weakness. It is wisdom wrapped in discipline. There is power in not responding, power in holding your tongue when everything in you wants to clap back, defend yourself, or prove your worth. The world will try to convince you that silence is surrender, that if you don't speak up, if you don't post about it, if you don't tell your side of the story, then you've somehow lost. A child of God, you don't need validation from the noise around you when the one who called you already confirmed you. Your silence is a weapon because it disarms the enemy. He expects chaos. He expects conflict. He expects you to step out of character. But when you choose silence, you rob him of his playground. Think about how Jesus, standing before Pilate, chose silence when he could have spoken. He had the authority to call down angels, to shift the atmosphere with just a word, yet he stayed quiet because his assignment was greater than the argument. That silence wasn't weakness, it was divine strength. Sometimes your silence is your loudest sermon. It says, I know who I am. I don't need to argue with you about it. My fruit will speak for me. The discipline of silence is not about ignoring problems. It's about choosing not to waste your energy where it doesn't produce fruit. Every time you engage in unnecessary battles, you drain the very strength you need for the destiny God is preparing for you. Silence allows you to conserve that strength, redirect that focus, and align it with what matters most. It's easy to talk, it's easy to defend, it's easy to respond, but it takes maturity to hold your peace. Silence says, I trust God to handle this. I don't need to fight battles that don't belong to me. And while silence may look passive on the outside, it's active warfare on the inside, because in your silence, you're inviting God to fight for you. In your silence, you're creating room for clarity. In your silence, you're proving to yourself that you are no longer driven by emotions, but led by wisdom. People may misunderstand your silence. They may think you're scared, unbothered, or disconnected. But the truth is, silence is often the deepest form of confidence. It's the proof that you don't have to shout to be strong. You don't have to explain to be valid. And you don't have to fight to be victorious. Silence puts you in alignment with heaven's strategy, because when you hold your peace, heaven has the space to move. Peace is one of the most expensive gifts you'll ever have, and yet it's the one we give away so cheaply. We hand it to people's opinions, to unnecessary arguments, to environments that no longer serve us. But when God starts maturing you, he will also start teaching you the value of withdrawing. Protecting your peace doesn't always look like winning the argument. It looks like walking away from it. It doesn't always look like explaining yourself. It looks like letting silence speak for you. Sometimes the greatest evidence that you are growing is that you no longer attend battles you were once desperate to fight. Withdrawn is not weakness, it is wisdom. When you step back, when you remove yourself from the noise, when you choose not to be available for every conversation, you are saying, I value my peace more than your opinion of me. Protecting your peace requires the courage to disappoint people so that you don't keep disappointing yourself. Because the truth is, some of us have been so busy pleasing people that we've sacrificed the very peace that God promised us. You cannot live in constant turbulence and expect to hear God clearly. Jesus himself modeled this. Over and over in the Gospels, we see him withdrawing to the mountain, stepping away from the crowd, leaving behind even his disciples to spend time in the stillness of the Father. He understood that peace wasn't found in the crowd. It was found in the presence of God. If Jesus, the Savior of the world, knew when to withdraw, then why do we keep forcing ourselves to stay in places that drain us? Protecting your peace means being intentional about where you go, who you let in, and what you entertain. Withdrawal doesn't mean isolation, it means preservation. It means that you're wise enough to know when your spirit is being pulled in too many directions and bold enough to hit pause. Protecting your peace might look like not responding to that text. It might look like unfollowing certain people who keep stirring negativity in your spirit. It might look like declining invitations to environments that God already told you to leave behind. Protecting your peace is choosing your future over your feelings. When you withdraw, you give yourself room to breathe, to reset, to recharge, and it's in that space of stillness that clarity comes. You can't hear what God is saying if you're drowning in everybody else's noise. Protecting your peace is about positioning yourself where his voice becomes louder than the voices around you. It's not about running away, it's about running towards the quiet where strength is renewed, where wisdom is poured out, where peace is restored. Not every battle deserves your words, not every comment deserves your clapback, and not every accusation deserves your energy. One of the hardest lessons to learn on a journey of growth is that silence is not always weakness, it is strategy. You have to discern when to speak and when to stay silent, because responding to everything means you'll eventually run out of strength for the things that truly matter. Maturity teaches you that sometimes your greatest power is found in restraint, not reaction. The enemy knows how to bait you. He knows how to send a word, a look, or a situation that pushes your buttons and makes you feel like you have to defend yourself. But responding to everything is how you end up fighting battles that don't build you. Learning when not to respond means you've grown past needing to have the last word. It means you've discovered that your destiny is too valuable to be delayed by distraction. Think about Nehemiah, who was building the wall while his enemies tried to pull him into conversations. They wanted him to stop working, to come down and defend himself, to explain what he was doing. But Nehemiah said, I'm doing a great work and I cannot come down. That wasn't arrogance, that was wisdom. He knew his assignment was too great to pause for pettiness. When you learn not to respond, you're declaring that you are too focused on building what God placed in your hands to be distracted by what people throw at your feet. Not responding doesn't mean you don't see it. It doesn't mean you're blind to the shade, the gossip, the lies, or the criticism. It means you've chosen not to invest your energy into it. Because every response is an investment. Every word you release is a seed, and you can't afford to plant seeds in soil that will never produce fruit. Learning when not to respond means your energy is reserved for prayers, for purpose, for assignments, for growth. Sometimes silence is the only language the enemy can't manipulate. When you speak, he twists it, he distorts it, he tries to use it against you. But when you withhold your response, you starve him of the material he needs to work with. Your silence frustrates the enemy because he loses access to your emotions. It's not that you didn't hear, it's that you're wise enough to discern that not everything deserves a reaction. It takes courage to keep quiet when you know you could expose the truth, when you know you could set the record straight, when you know you could embarrass the very people trying to tear you down. But silence says, I'm choosing peace over proving. I'm choosing destiny over distraction. I'm choosing wisdom over words. And in that decision, you create space for God to step in and respond on your behalf. One of the greatest distractions to destiny is comparison. The moment you start measuring your life against someone else's timeline, you lose sight of what God is doing in you. Shifting focus from others to your growth is about recognizing that what God has placed in your hands is enough. And if you keep watering it, it will bloom in its season. Too often we get stuck watching someone else's highlight reel and forget that their process isn't our process. Their lane isn't our lane. Their story isn't our story. You can't walk into your assignment if you're busy peeking over at theirs. When you shift the focus back to yourself, you begin to see how much room there is to grow, how much potential is still inside of you, how many lessons God is waiting to teach you in the quiet. Growth doesn't happen when you're obsessed with what's happening outside of you. It happens when you turn inward and ask God, what do you want to develop in me? What do you want to prune? What do you want to birth through me? The soil of growth is cultivated in focus, not distraction. The enemy loves when your eyes are on others because it keeps you from recognizing the power you already carry. He'll make you feel like you're behind, like you don't measure up, like you're missing something everyone else has. But God never created you to be a duplicate. He created you to be a blueprint. And when you shift focus back to yourself, you stop competing and start cultivating. You stop chasing what isn't yours and start building what is. Think about how much time we waste comparing our journey to someone else's. Their success becomes our insecurity. Their progress becomes our pressure. But what if you took all that energy and redirected it back into yourself? What if instead of watching someone else's moves, you started working on your own discipline? What if instead of being consumed with their growth, you became intentional about your healing, your purpose, your consistency? Shifting your focus means reclaiming all the time, energy, and attention you've been pouring outward and allowing it to transform you inward. Growth requires honesty. When your eyes on others, it's easy to escape accountability. But when your focus comes back to you, you have to face your own patterns, your own distractions, your own habits, and that's where real change begins. You can't heal what you keep ignoring. You can't grow where you refuse to confront. Shifting focus back to yourself is not selfish, it's stewardship. It's saying, God, I want to maximize what you placed inside of me before I worry about what you placed in somebody else. When you begin to focus on your growth, you realize that peace comes easier, clarity comes faster, and healing runs deeper. Because you're no longer scattering your energy on what doesn't belong to you. You're investing it into what God has entrusted you with. Quiet seasons can feel uncomfortable because we live in a culture that glorifies noise, movement, and constant results. When everything slows down, when people stop calling, when opportunities seem paused, it's easy to feel forgotten. But those quiet seasons are not punishment. They are preparation. They are the classrooms where God teaches you discipline, the gym where your spiritual muscles are built, the soil where your character takes root. Building discipline in quiet seasons means refusing to waste the space where God is shaping you. It's in the quiet seasons that you learn consistency. You learn how to pray when no one is watching. You learn how to stay committed even when nobody is clapping. You learn how to obey even when it feels like nothing is changing. Discipline is forged when you keep showing up, not because of applause, but because of alignment. Quiet seasons test whether your commitment is to recognition or to transformation. The reason discipline matters so much is because elevation will expose whatever you didn't develop in the dark. If you can't be trusted to seek God when things are still, how will you stand when things get loud? If you can't stay faithful in private, how will you endure pressure in public? The quiet seasons strip away distractions so that you can strengthen your foundation. It's not glamorous, but it's necessary. Without discipline, every blessing becomes a burden, and every platform becomes a downfall. Discipline in the quiet doesn't look like perfection. It looks like persistence. It means setting rhythms that keep your spirit anchored, waking up early to spend time in prayer even when no one knows, studying scripture not because you need a sermon, but because your soul needs food. saying no to temptations that try to sabotage your progress, choosing to fast, choosing to serve, choosing to sow, even when you feel unseen. These small acts, repeated in silence, create a strength that cannot be shaken when the noise comes. Think about David tending sheep in the fields. Nobody was watching, nobody was applauding, nobody was posting about him. But in that quiet season, he was building discipline. He was learning how to worship in obscurity, how to fight lions and bears when nobody cared. And when the time came for Goliath, David was ready, not because of what happened on the battlefield, but because of what was developed in the quiet fields. Quiet seasons are not wasted seasons. They are the very seasons that prepare you for war. The quiet will challenge you to discipline your mind because thoughts grow loud when environments grow still. It will push you to discipline your emotions because isolation can magnify feelings of insecurity. It will force you to discipline your habits because what you practice in private determines how you perform in public. Quiet seasons are divine training grounds, and discipline is the tool that ensures you leave them stronger than you entered. There is a peace that comes when you finally release the burden of defending yourself. We spend so much time trying to explain who we are, prove what we're worth, and correct the lies people tell about us. But what if the greatest power move is letting God speak for you? Allowing God to speak for you means you stop wasting your voice in places where his voice carries more weight. It means you trust that his vindication will always be louder than your explanation. When God speaks for you, he speaks in ways no human can argue with. He speaks through the fruit of your life, through the doors that open when others tried to close them, through the elevation that comes when people counted you out. Your silence gives him space to move, and when he does, the evidence is undeniable. You don't have to convince anyone you're chosen when God himself confirms it. You don't have to broadcast your worth when God's favor makes it visible. Allowing God to speak for you requires surrender. It means biting your tongue when you know you could clap back. It means staying still when you want to run ahead. It means trusting his timing over your feelings. And this is not easy because everything in you will want to defend yourself. Everything in you will want to post about it, talk about it, prove them wrong. But if you really believe God is your defender, then silence becomes your declaration of faith. Think about Moses when the Israelites were trapped at the Red Sea. They were panicking, they were complaining, and Moses didn't have the words to fix it, but God spoke. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. That stillness wasn't passivity, it was power. It was the kind of power that makes the sea split, that makes enemies drown, that makes victory undeniable. Sometimes the stillness of your silence is the very stage God needs to display his voice. People may misjudge you, misunderstand you, misrepresent you, but God knows the truth. And when he reveals it, it won't just silence your critics, it will glorify him. Because when God speaks, he doesn't just defend you, he elevates you. He makes it clear that your success is not because of your strategy, but because of his sovereignty. Allowing God to speak for you transforms your silence from weakness into worship. It says, God, I trust you to say what I cannot. I trust you to show what I don't need to prove. I trust you to answer questions my words could never satisfy. Your discipline in staying silent becomes the evidence of your faith. Your refusal to fight with words becomes the proof that you believe in his power. And the beautiful thing is, when God speaks for you, his voice doesn't just settle the situation, it shifts the entire atmosphere in your favor. Silence is not just the absence of words. It is the presence of reflection. It is the space where God finally gets your undivided attention, the stillness where he can reveal what the noise has been covering. Turning silence into inner healing means allowing the quiet to become a mirror, showing you the wounds you've been hiding, the pain you've been avoiding, and the brokenness you've been masking with busyness. In the silence, what you've suppressed begins to surface, not to destroy you, but to deliver you So many of us use noise as a coping mechanism. We stay busy. We surround ourselves with people. We fill the room with distractions so we don't have to face what's happening inside. But silence strips all of that away. In silence, there's no one left to applaud you, no one left to affirm you, no one left to distract you. It's just you and God face to face with the areas of your soul that need healing. And as uncomfortable as that feels, it's in those moments that real transformation begins. Inner healing requires honesty. You can't heal what you refuse to acknowledge. Silence gives you the courage to sit with your emotions long enough to recognize the patterns, the triggers, the deep places where hurt still lingers. It's in the stillness that God begins to peel back the layers and say, this is why you keep reacting this way. This is why you keep choosing the wrong people. This is why you struggle to trust. Silence doesn't just expose the pain, it invites God to heal it. Think about Elijah when he was hiding in the cave. He expected God to show up in the fire, in the wind, in the earthquake, in all the noise. But God's voice came in a gentle whisper, in the silence. And in that silence, God reminded Elijah of his identity, his purpose, and his strength. That's what healing silence does. It reintroduces you to yourself. It allows you to release the lies you believed about your brokenness and embrace the truth of who God says you are. Healing in silence is not about perfection. It's about progression. It's about learning to sit with yourself without judgment, to confront your wounds without shame, to give God access to the places you've kept locked away. It's about understanding that silence is not empty. It's full of opportunity for restoration, because when the noise is gone, the whisper of healing can finally be heard. Silence becomes therapy when you allow it to work. It teaches you to listen deeper, to feel what you've numbed, to forgive what you've held onto, to release what you can't control. It becomes the sacred space where God takes your broken pieces and begins to put them back together again. Silence may not feel like healing at first, but over time, it becomes the soil where peace takes root, where wounds turn into wisdom, and where scars become testimonies.